You know, I'll say one thing about Edison. Whenever he builds something, he builds it the best it could possibly be. And just look at the size of these two machines, and they are just as heavy as they look. So let me take the covers off and show you what I got here. That was easy. Okay, what do I got here? I have two Edison spring motor concert machines. So I'm going to bring you in and take a look at them, but let's talk about it for a minute first. This one obviously looks a little different. This has a Polyphone on it, which I'll explain when I get closer up to it what that actually is. And I've got a video of us playing this thing. It sounds amazing. So what do I got here? These concert machines were introduced in 1899. At that time, the cylinders that were being made was the early wax cylinders. They were pantographically dubbed, meaning you had a master cylinder, and then you played that cylinder and transferred the recording onto another cylinder, and you did this over and over again to mass produce cylinders. Sometimes they were able to pantographically do this to several cylinders at once, but it was still a slow process, and each time you did that, the sound degraded. So by the time you got the cylinder, first they weren't very loud at the beginning anyway, and then now being pantographically dubbed, they were even quieter than they were originally. And then if you were like the third or fourth or fifth or 20th generation, you can imagine they weren't very loud. And I've seen a lot of them where the grooves are almost, you can hardly see them at all, and they're very quiet. So to address this issue, both Columbia and Edison came out with a larger 5-inch cylinder, the size for this mandrel, and I'll show you one in a minute. But that wax cylinder, because it's still a 2-minute cylinder, but because it travels a lot further in one revolution along the wax than the smaller size cylinder, you got more area to store more vibrations and get a better quality sound. So they were louder and had a better frequency response. Those cylinders lasted for a number of years, even though this came out in 1899. By 1902, Edison was already improving the hardness of the wax he was using, and the volume problems were becoming less and less important. But at that time, before that, Edison was marketing this as the concert cylinder, and Columbia was marketing their machines and their cylinders as the grand cylinder. But they're both basically interchangeable cylinders. These machines, when they came out, were, as you can see, big and heavy, but they were kind of like a boutique item. You know, the cylinders took up a lot of space, the machines were expensive, so only really the more wealthy type of clientele would buy this type of machine. All the cylinders that came on this were pantographically dubbed, the same as the original wax cylinders. Even later, when the technology got better, these cylinders were always pantographically dubbed until they ceased to be made, which was around 1907. So this only lasted about 8 years, because quickly the changes in what was going on in the cylinder market, the improvements were so vast, these kind of didn't seem to be very practical. The cylinders were expensive, they were kind of more fragile than the smaller ones, and so people were going towards the other type of cylinder more. At some point, as the new cylinders came out, people were finding that this wasn't exactly the right type of cylinder they wanted, and the company wasn't really interested in producing a lot of these. So what they did was they provided you could buy a separate carriage, which was more horizontal here, and you could replace this mandrel and this part here and the carriage with one that would play the regular size cylinders. So the buyers of this weren't sort of out of luck, they just had to adapt their machine to the smaller size cylinders. And by that point, as I said, the cylinders were much better sounding, and so it all was well. This machine was really only made in one model, although the case changed dramatically to the new style case, along with all their other machines that changed over to a new style of case. And I've got one of those, and I'll make a video of that after I make this video. The reproducer on the early 1899 version of this machine would have been an automatic reproducer. This is a Model D reproducer, which is really the same sort of thing as a Model C. The only difference being that if you look at this tab, the angle on the tab of a Model C is more pronounced, because it could wrap around a smaller diameter record. Since this cylinder was much larger, the tab had to be a little bit flatter. So that's the reproducer that this would have been upgraded to, and later on, around 1902, all the machines started getting the upgraded Model C reproducer, and in this case it would have been called the Model D. So let's come in and take a look at both these machines. Let's first look at the one with the Polyphone attachment. There's the Polyphone attachment. This was an aftermarket product that was used to give you a little bit more volume and a little bit bigger sound. The two reproducers being so close together would play on different parts of the groove about, like a tenth of a second apart or something like that. I don't know the actual number, but that would give you sort of like an echo, and it would sound bigger, more like it was in an auditorium. And when I play the cylinder, you'll hear what I'm talking about. I did do a video on Polyphone attachments, so you can check that out, and it gives you more detail, so I won't go over everything there again. Here's the machine, the spring motor. So this is the first machine that Edison adapted with the spring motor. Before that, he had the Class M, which was an electric machine. And then quite rapidly, spring motors became useful for a whole variety of his machines. There's the ID plate for use in the United States and Canada. And here's the drawer with some of the products that were in it originally. I love this green cabinet. I find the lid's a little cumbersome. I mean, it covers the entire machine. It's in great condition. Early serial number, C163. This other one is around the same period, but it's a slightly bit different, mainly because of this ID plate. So this would have been Edison Bell Consolidated Phonograph. So that would have been in England. And you'll notice it says not to be used in connection with an automatic or slot device, because people were taking these and adapting them for coin-operated mechanisms. So this is the British version, and I notice it's slightly different. The serial number on this one is on this part here, where on the other one, it was right under the signature, if you remember. You can go back and look at it if you like. Otherwise, they seem to be pretty much identical. Again, it's got the drawer, beautiful green color. There's a recorder and the crank. Okay, let's hear. I'm going to play the Polyphone, as I said. So let me set this up, and we'll hear a cylinder on the Polyphone adapted spring motor Edison phonograph. Okay, I think what we're going to do is give this Polyphone spring motor phonograph a try with a Lambert cylinder. Wow, I have played a lot of machines in the videos I've been making, but I gotta tell you, I mean, in this room, it always sounds a little bit different than in the video. In this room, that sounded amazing. The Polyphone really brings out like that echo that gives it this big sound. Of course, the Lambert cylinder helps too, because the Lambert cylinders are celluloid and they are louder. So you match the two together and you've really got something that's going to sound good. So I hope you really enjoyed hearing that incredible machine.